When you think about healthcare, we are a mixture of science and art. You know, I mean, we're the perfect mixture because the art comes in the people. So what we always try and say with our leaders is a very deliberate connection to your people, and we try and break it down into techniques that make it simple for them. How do you support your leaders with tools that actually make that leadership journey simple for them, like rounding, you know, or something like that that's pretty concrete, you know, around that. So I think we always look for technical competence. We always look for simple tools to help them support and connect to the people that they are leading. And the third thing that I always say in our organization, because we are an art, is connect to the patient first. You know, I mean, that is a very simple mantra to be in our staff, to be our leader. Now we're broadening that to connect to people first in a broader role as we redefine patient to be a broader member based on our health plan or consumer-based type of thing. So we, you know, basically look at it in those three different ways, if you break it down very simply for our leaders.
Rod, what are the simple rules that you would say you look for or impart to your leaders? What are the simple rules?
Sure, I think, you know, I only impart to our leaders what CEOs should know, and CEOs are only capable of knowing 3 things at a time, so we keep it to 3. But you know, when I talk about leadership, I always talk about 3 skills that great leaders have to have. One, it's about communication, communication, and communication. So for me, it's communicating with my board, it's communicating with my sponsors, communicating with our 118,000 caregivers. The second is strategy, that all of us as leaders have to be the ones that set the strategy. Now, I may have a chief strategic officer, but at the end of the day, if you're a leader, you have to be the one that says, which hill are we going to take, why do we do it, and how do we do it? And then the third thing that I think leadership often misses, that's probably the most important, is great leaders pick great people. And the skill set of picking the right people for your team, no matter where you are in your organization, is something that's really important. And there's something else to picking great leaders. You pick great people, and then you get out of their way and you let them do what they're supposed to do. And I think a lot of leaders fail to demonstrate that. And you can't really lead at scale unless you pick people and let them do what they need to do. But if you keep those 3 things in mind, it's really 90% of the work that you do.
So simplifying even the CEO role.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Which is the new normal. I mean, we've changed our competencies to really reflect that as well. I'm reminded of a quote that I have on my board in my office by Eric Hoffer, and it says, in times of change, learners will inherit the earth. And the knowers will be beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists.
That's great.
And that's where we are. And so to Rod's comments about flexibility, adaptability, being open, because every day brings a new dramatic shift of how we have to respond to that.
Kathy, how has your role changed as CEO there?
Yeah.
And now you're different, I'm presuming different hats you wear because of the community demands.
Yeah, you know, exactly. And I think, you know, we all learned, any of us who've been in healthcare in any period of time, hopefully we all learned. Remember when we all bought physician practices for the first time? And what did you do? You put your best hospital administrator in there to run your physician practice into the ground, usually, you know, is exactly what happened. And so I would, you know, couple on what Rod said, you know, I think we've learned from that. You know, go hire the people. Sometimes you can develop, sometimes you have to hire, you know, and bring people in from outside of healthcare to be able to do that, whether obviously physician practice experience, health plan experience. I know Providence has a health plan, population health, all of those different types of things, data scientists, digital. But I think what we're really finding, not only, you know, to my leadership team, but myself, is that when you bring those people in from the outside, particularly when they're not, like I like to say, healthcare natives, they change what you do and what you think, you know. So we just had, I intentionally did this, but we just had the opportunity to hire a chief experience officer. It's not anybody to drive HCAPs, CGCAPs, anything like that, but to redo our entire experience based around consumerism. He was the chief experience officer at Aetna for 3 years. That was his only stint in healthcare, was those, otherwise he came out of financial services, out of a USAA background. And the things that he asks me in a very, just questioning type of way, or like, oh my God, we never thought about it that way, kind of thing. Not just even from a patient consumer perspective, but from a doing business perspective. When you have people who have come out of a corporate world, they just question everything about how we make decisions and how we decide things. It's just been an amazing way of reframing what we have to do as an executive leadership team, as well as, wow, the transformation that we have to make across our organization, because they do start impacting then the hospital leaders and the physician group leaders and the health plan leaders and what we might have put in our traditional businesses, but they give us a whole different view on where we're going. I mean, very similar to what Rod said with the Amazon folks coming in.
So a little bit a question here, and I'll start with Eric, because I'll warn you that you're up next. We're in an environment now, and I hear from everyone, the stress, the disruption, and it's not just healthcare, all industries. Tremendous changes in DC. We do a 180 at each election, and we get different directions out of CMS on where we're heading. We have pressure from consumerism. They're fed up with the fact that they don't know what it's going to cost when they come to get services. They don't want to wait. Whole different expectations than go to CVS Minute Clinic instead of their primary care office. We have technology, my Apple Watch, which I'll soon buy, which will now replace a lot of what traditionally has been done by Medtronic or others in great data gathering. We have new entities coming into what's been our turf. We have people saying we're fed up, we're not going to take this anymore, we're going to fix the healthcare system. And we have all these incredible mergers and acquisitions and vertical and horizontal structures. So everybody in a leadership position in your organization is tremendously stressed. Do we need a minister now for our chief human resource officers or a social worker? Or how do you help your leaders?
Well, we are proposing to bring EAP on site to help, truly. But, it really is, and I talk to a lot of leaders about it, is when all this gets really complicated, it's kind of like with the origami, to keep it simple, is we talk about, okay, every decision, everything we do should be based on, I call it my 3 Fs. It's got to be foundational and focus and have fun. And then we'll be able to deal with all of it. So if the foundation of it is really what's best for the patient, or in my world, what's best for the employees that are caring for the patient, that's the foundational. And then we've got all this noise going out there, so we need to stay focused. What is it? We've just gone through our strategic planning for 2025. So on the people side, it was, okay, what do we need from the human capital to even get us to 2025? And put that into steps. Be foundational and then focus and say, this is what has to be done in FY19, this is what has to be done in FY20. If we don't get those things done, we won't get to 2025. And then that 3rd F is, and we need to have fun doing it. We need to infuse the excitement that this is fun, you're not going to work doing the same thing. Yes, we may be tired as caregivers, but it's because people are voting with their feet and coming to get care, and that's rejuvenating. So it really is to stay focused on what I call my 3 Fs.
Deb, how would you respond to that set of challenges in that question? What's your role now?
Well, I think what's not changing is our commitment to our mission and values, and so that's at the core of really what helps us keep that magnetic north. And I think when we have conversations, because as I think about the holy grail of human resources and what our caregivers want, and that's what we call all of our employees at Providence St. Joseph as caregivers, because everyone can make a difference in the caring and the healing of everyone who enters our doors. And so spending time rooted in those values of compassion and respect and integrity and excellence, really helps to have the conversations of what more do you need in order to connect to what Rod talked about, the strategy. Why do we exist? Where are we going? And how will we be along the way? And so, that simple conversation to just take a time out and to really focus on what's at core of what somebody engages, of why they're here. And I think that's what's different in healthcare. It's a noble calling. And so we're able to attract the people from Amazon, from Google's, from Microsoft's, because they're at a point in their life where they want something more. They want a connection to a bigger purpose. And what we do every day is a noble calling. And so to be rooted in that helps to, I mean, we have stress, we have burnout. We just got our engagement scores, and for the 5th year in a row, we continue to see increases in our highly sustainable engagement. But it's those conversations. Rod asked me, what was the success of our results this year? And I said, we did pulse surveys every quarter. And we were active with our core leaders and having regular conversation, not just a one and done survey, so that it becomes part of who we are each and every day.
Do you agree with that to some degree? Your job is to protect them from those external stressors and say, guys, it's going to be okay. You do your work. We save patients' lives. We'll be okay?
A little bit. I was going to change my title from CEO to CPO, Chief Psychological Officer.
Exactly.
And, you spend a lot of time, I think, as the head football coach, working with your team and trying to deal with what are the stresses that are outside, and we can do this, but also between them, in a highly competitive, complex environment. The other thing that I think that's helped our organization, because you got to tune out some of the noise, is they want their CEO and their organization to stand for something. So we've taken a position, we've gone out there on immigration, on human trafficking, on the environment. Now, we don't mention names, but we just state what our position is. And I have to say, 99.99% of our caregivers love that. It makes them feel much, much better about where they are. And I think it helps with the stress day to day, because I said, look, at least we stand for something. We got a direction. They want to know, I think in this day and age, I think if you're a leader, they want to know that you're going to put yourself out there and you're not going to talk. So I think those things have helped a lot. You can't shield everything from someone. And I think there has to be this honest appraisal about what's crazy out there. But then there's also that thing, I think, Kathy, you said it. What can we change and what can't we change? I can't necessarily what's changing in Washington. So we've got to really concentrate on the things that are most important to our organization. That helps people calm down a little bit and not try to, get rattled by everything that's around them.